What's up, everyone, and welcome to the 6th episode of the Control Freak Podcast. I am your host, Alex Blackard, or at LessAlex on Twitter. This is the only Magic the Gathering podcast devoted to all things modern and all things Control in Modern. So if you like casting Jace the Mind Sculptor, Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, and Narset, Parter of Veils, this is the podcast for you. And if you want to try and get inside the mind and thoughts of a blue Control player in Modern, you might want to give it a listen. Or if you just want to hear about Modern in general, this is the podcast for you. I was supposed to have a guest on tonight, but due to some very frustrating technical difficulties, as in we recorded multiple podcasts tonight and they just, for some reason, just didn't, it just didn't work out. So regardless, I appreciate Zach Johnson for recording it a second time, and then I tried to record it a third time. Anyway, a lot of things went wrong, but appreciate Zach Johnson. Big shout out to him. But today we have a lot to talk about. I have a lot to get through. I'm going solo dolo. So yeah, we're going to talk about Magic Fest Dallas Fort Worth, SCG Pittsburgh, some core set spoilers, some core set 2020 cards that I think might see play in Modern, and we got some Magic news. But if you do enjoy the podcast, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. And if you really, really enjoy it, go on over to Apple Podcasts, give me a 5-star review. Those help out so much. I don't think anyone really realizes how much reviews help on Apple Podcasts. So if you do find a bit of insight, and if this podcast does help you out at all, go on over there. It takes 5 minutes, less than that. Give it 5 stars. Say 2 sentences of kindness, and I would definitely appreciate that. But let's get into the podcast, and let's get into the first topic, which, as I start every episode, just some general Magic the Gathering news. First things first, Pauper. Pauper is finally a format, an actual live format. They have merged the Moto lists. They have merged the paper list. So now it is one cohesive format, and they banned 3 cards right out the gate: Sinkhole, High Tide, and Hymn to Turok. Sorry, you're banned. Mystic Remora, though, is not banned, and we saw a spike. It went from fairly cheap to about $6 now. So very cool stuff that Pauper is a real format now, and I expect them to start seeing some support from Wizards, maybe even that long-awaited Pauper GP that I know a lot of people are dying for. So, and next up, though, we have a new format as well. So we got Pauper, that's great, but a brand new format called Historic. So this one's kind of a weird one to me because of where this starts. So it's a non-rotating format. It's going to be, currently, it's just going to be on Arena. So kind of interesting. It starts with Ixalan and we'll move forward. So basically right now it's actually just actual factual standard, but once the new fall set comes out, we will have a brand new format, and in a couple of years I could see this thing really start to take off. A lot of people are comparing this to a WoTC endorsed Frontier. I don't see it as that. I definitely think Frontier had its own issues. Big reason it had issues was because of the lands, the fetch lands, kind of disproportionately gave certain colors advantages. So yeah, I think this is going to be cool as cards enter the format, but currently this is just standard and then kind of extended for like the next year or so. But it'll be very interesting to see how this format really develops and if it can kind of grab hold of Magic players, you know, moving forward, because obviously 5-6 years down the road, there'll be more and more Magic players. Obviously, Magic's not stopping. Magic players people still want to play, and there are always new players entering, I guess you could say, the arena of Magic. So for those new players, maybe at some point they're priced out of Modern and can't really get in. So this is a great way to kind of keep those players interested and invested into that. And I definitely think if it picks up enough steam, it could pick up in paper. So, but the one big downside with this announcement, is as much as I enjoy Wizards taking chances and making new fun formats, they announced, when they did this announcement, they said that it's only going to be casual. So there's no ladder on Arena for this. I think that's honestly a mistake, because I think people are going to want to play with their cards that rotated. And I mean, what's the incentive? I mean, Magic players love to grind. We love the grind. We look at everything in terms of like EV scale and all this. So I really think they missed the mark on the whole only being a quote unquote casual format. So that is kind of a stinker for me. But yeah, that's pretty much the news for this week. Big news, at least. We got 2 new formats. Well, one returning and getting solidified by Magic. And now we have Historic, so pretty cool stuff. But let's get into these. Excuse me. Let's get into these Core Set 2020 spoilers. We got quite a bit of sweet ones here, some spicy ones, some that I think are very fringe playable. That's kind of the theme with this new Magic Core 2020 set is very seems like it was a little bit of Modern Horizons leftover cards. There are a lot of cards here that look like they could make it in Modern. So let's talk through them. I'm not going to go through every single card, and I'm not going to go by color. This time I'm just going to look at Mythic spoiler, go line by line, and tell you what I like. I already know what I want to talk about, so be super smooth, and we'll get through this. But the first card I do want to talk about, again, this is borderline. I'm pretty sure this isn't going to pop up, but if it does, hey, I want to get some credit that I called it out. So the first one is Mu Yinglang Sky Dancer. So she is a legendary planeswalker for generic blue for 2 loyalty. +2 until your next turn, up to 1 target creature gets -2/-0 and loses flying. -3, create a 4/4 blue elemental bird creature token with flying. And then -8, you get an emblem where islands you control have tap it to draw a card. And Patrick Sullivan on the SCG Tour coverage today kind of made a pretty good point about this card. And I'm sure he was talking about in the scope of Standard, but it's also true in Modern. This is 3 mana, suspend 4, you win the game, right? Because if you're playing this in a mono blue deck, you the hope is to play it on turn 3, just uptick, and then ultimate it. And then all your islands are just drawing you cards, and you typically just win the game. Now, granted, a lot of planeswalkers, their ultimate just pretty much win the game, but I do think, nerfing a creature for 1 turn is pretty good. Being able to just say that they don't get to deal any damage is pretty great. And the fact that the creature loses flying is definitely pretty relevant, because a lot of blue-white controls creatures are ground critters. So I definitely think it's possible. Again, probably not, because we've got a lot of gas right now at the 3-drop. We got Narset, we got Teferi, we've got Force of Negation. So probably not going to get there, but I definitely did want to point it out just because it's close. I think even if it was 3, if it had like 3 loyalty when it entered, or the -3 was a -2 and you could just instantly make a bird for 4 mana, it'd be a lot more reasonable. Probably find a home somewhere. But again, as it is, probably not, but I did want to point it out. But moving on, we have Chandra, Awakened Inferno. This is 4 red for a legendary planeswalker mythic rare with 6 loyalty. Comes down early and off, well, not early, but comes down and really is hard to kill. And it has a line of text before all of her activated abilities that says, this spell can't be countered, period. Okay, so right off the rip, I'm like, holy smokes, this thing is a big red flag. No pun intended. Let's read through it. So +2, each opponent gets an emblem at the beginning of your upkeep. This emblem deals 1 damage to you. Wow. Moving on. -3, Chandra deals 3 damage to each non-elemental creature, and -X, Chandra deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker. If that permanent is dealt damage, exile it rather than, if it dies, exile it instead, basically. So, holy smokes, there's a lot to kind of dig into on this one. It can't be countered. Obviously, that's huge against us. We like to, the best way to deal with planeswalkers is to simply counter them, whether it be Force Negation, Mana Leak, Logic Knot. This gets around that because it simply can't be countered. +2, making an emblem. First off, I want to say that I do believe that the mono-red prison-style decks will probably be playing one of these. 6 mana is a lot, but they slow the game down a lot. An early Chalice on 1 or 2 definitely lets them play a long game. And the fact, specifically against control decks, that it makes an emblem and isn't able to be countered is huge, because there are a lot of games, I don't know about you, but there are a lot of games where I kind of stall out, stabilize at maybe 3, 2, or even 1 life. Against this, you simply can't do that. It will kill you if you go too far into the game. So Chandra Awakened Inferno is kind of terrifying in a matchup, in a deck that is in a matchup that is already kind of shaky, because if they get, again, that early Chalice on 1, it can be brutal, and then they hit you with the Blood Moon, and it's lights out from there. So this card is pretty terrifying in that sense. Now, flip side of that coin, does Jeskai Control play this? We already play Teferi, which is a 5-drop, but this is a 6-drop that can't be countered by opposing control decks, or just in general, right? Doesn't always have to be a control deck that's countering. And that same scenario where we stabilize, this creates a win condition. There are games where you kind of stabilize and then you kind of just draw air. Maybe you just draw like 2 lands in a row and only have like, I don't know, a detention sphere, you know? So there's times like that where you just kind of can't. You can't finish the deal. You can't seal the deal. And Chandra, with these emblems, is going to be able to seal the deal. Obviously, every ability on here is a good control ability. Dealing 3 damage to everything is excellent. Obviously, it doesn't hit the Voice of Resurgence or their tokens or Young Pyromancer tokens. But I believe that, I believe that overall, Chandra's a big game, and then obviously the -X just pretty much killing anything the second it comes down. Also very strong. Exiling is huge as well. Moving on, they're reprinting the Ley Lines. Leyline of Sanctity, Leyline of Anticipation, Leyline of the Void, all getting reprints. Side note, I definitely think you should be picking these up right now, because Leyline of the Void are like $15 right now for these pre-sale. Leyline of Sanctities are like $8. I mean, obviously, Leyline of the Void is insane against, is good against Hogak. And Leyline of Sanctity is great against Burn. So these are definitely things you should pick up now, because Leyline's like all day a $30 card. And Leyline of the Void, that is, in Leyline of Sanctity, obviously like 15, maybe even $20 on a good day. But the main Leyline I want to talk about here is a new one. It's Leyline of Abundance. So Leyline of Abundance is a new green Leyline, and I definitely think it's the strongest green Leyline that they've ever printed, because it's 2 and 2 green, enchantment rare, has the Leyline ability where if it's in your opener, you get to play it for free on turn 0. And then it has, whenever you tap a creature for mana, add an additional green. And then it also has 6 green, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So the thing that I think is really sweet with this is Birds of Paradise, or literally any 1 mana dork. So you go turn 1 mana dork, turn 2 land, and then you can play Freed from the Real. And Freed from the Real lets you basically generate a blue mana, and you get to untap and tap and make 1,000 mana, and then you get to pump your Birds of Paradise and kill them the next turn. So pretty sweet that this is just like a one-shot combo on turn 2. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. Just like Hogak, am I right? But yeah, Leyline of Abundance, very cool. I think that you could even see this in maybe Elves. Elves seems pretty sweet with this. I mean, they already, all their things make mana anyway, so what's in another additional mana seems pretty good. So that is Leyline of Abundance. Moving on down the line, this is one that Zach pointed out to me, and I kind of just didn't even see it, and then I felt bad because it's a really sweet blue card that's probably pretty good against burn. Cerulean Drake is 1 generic and a blue. Creature Drake, uncommon for a 1/1. It's a flyer. It has protection from red, and you can sacrifice it to counter target spell that targets you. Obviously against burn, this is pretty great. Or even against like Mardu, you can counter their like hand hate spells. So, but ultimately, probably Timely Reinforcements is just better, but Cerulean Drake is definitely one to keep an eye out and try. I would try it. It might ultimately be a little bit worse, but it does come down a turn earlier and just blocks their creatures for days. So Cerulean Drake is definitely a cool one, and one that I definitely want to try. So next up we have Shifting Ceratops. Not quite sure if this one is going to break on through to Modern, but definitely great in Standard. But this one is 2 generic and 2 green for a creature dinosaur rare 5/4. Big boy. He or she could not be countered. This spell can't be countered. Protection from blue. And then it also has tap a green. Shifting Ceratops gains your choice of reach, trample, or haste until end of turn. So that's pretty terrifying, but I ultimately don't think this one is going to make it. There's a lot of cards that do similar things. Also at 4 mana, you kind of have Thrun's really great. Thrun is a hoser. And Shifting Ceratops might be a great budget option, though. Moving on down the line, we have Devout Decree. Not going to talk about it because I think Celestial Purge is just better. It hits any permanent. It hits Liliana. It hits Blood Moon. So Devout Decree not quite going to make it because it can only hit creatures and planeswalkers. The upside of Scry 1 isn't worth the downside of not being able to hit all permanent types. So Devout, I guess I did talk about it. Moving on, though, we have Fry. So this is one that is going to really put a wrench in our plans as control mages. Fry is a generic and a red instant uncommon. Spell can't be countered. A lot of uncounterable spells in this set. What is up with this wizard? You gotta chill out. I guess they're, standard blue decks are good or whatever, but seriously, this is a lot. This is too much. But Fry can't be countered, and it deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker that's white or blue. Are you kidding me? Teferi, dead. Jace, dead. Narset, dead. Snapcaster Mage, dead. Baneslayer Angel, dead. Lyra, also just dead. So basically this kills everything and there's nothing we can do about it. But what we can do about it is be aware. Let's try and get our Planeswalkers out of that 5 range. It can be difficult because both Jace and Teferi both tick up to 5 initially. So if they have a Fry waiting in the wings, probably just going to bite the dust. And there's not much we can do about it. So moving on, we have the green hate spell, which I think is very strong against us too. Veil of Summer. For a green instant uncommon, draw a card. If an opponent has cast a blue or black spell this turn, spells you control can't be countered. This can't be countered this turn. You and permanents you control gain hexproof from blue and black until end of turn. Holy smokes, it's a green counterspell. It's actually factually a green counterspell. This card seems very good against us and something we definitely need to be concerned with. Could see a home in Infect, probably not, but could. And also, there's also that chance of Elves potentially playing this too. So moving on down the line, we have a card that broke MTG Twitter with Brought Back. This one, people lost their minds because it can return lands. Anyway, let's talk about it. White, instant, rare. Choose up to 2 target permanent cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn. Return them to the battlefield tapped. Okay, so this one has a lot of potential, and I think that blue control decks could configure their decks and their mana base in such a way where we get to utilize just a bunch, like more like unnecessary amount in a normal deck, but we could play a bunch of fetch lands. And here's the dream scenario. Let me paint you this picture. Let me pitch you on this idea. So you go fetch land, go, and then back to you, fetch land, go. End of their turn, crack your fetches, cast Brought Back. You get your 2 fetches back from the graveyard back into the battlefield, and then on your 3rd turn, you play your land, crack your fetches, go find some lands, play Teferi, Hero of Dominaria on turn number 3. That seems insane, and if you're playing against a fair deck, it seems like you're winning the game on the spot. Brought Back is the real deal. I don't know how real of a deal it is, honestly, but it seems pretty sweet. It seems like it could be good in eggs. There could be some silly eggs deck, or even just as a value card against us, right? In like a Vizier deck. Could you imagine that? You kill their Vizier, or it gets killed somehow, you block it, or whatever. I don't know the exact scenario, but getting back 2 permanents is big game. Could you imagine your Teferi dying, and then you just casting Brought Back to bring it right back from the graveyard? That's big game. And then, like, here's a really cool scenario with Snapcaster Mage. They attack. You have Snapcaster Mage in play, and you have Brought Back in your graveyard. You block with Snapcaster, or you play Snapcaster Mage, target Brought Back, then block, crack your fetch. So now you're going to cast Brought Back to target the now dead Snapcaster Mage and the fetch land. Snapcaster Mage re-enters the battlefield, and then you path their other thing, or if you have a bazillion mana, you could Cryptic Command or cast Fact or Fiction or whatever else happens to be in your graveyard. Now, obviously, that's a dream scenario, but hey, we get to very large mana amounts. We get to a lot of lands. This deck draws a lot of lands. We know that. And then in eggs, I think the deck that would be really sweet, like return an Astrolabe, draw a card, return 2 Astrolabes or whatever. Yeah, this card seems insane. Again, a lot of these cards have huge upsides and then like very low downside, like very ceiling high, floor low kind of cards. Moving on though, this is a card that I don't think is quite good enough, but I want to talk about it because it's kind of a budget option. So if you are on a bit of a budget and playing blue-white, this could be something that's sweet if you have your Teferi Time Ravelers. Drawn from Dreams, 2 generic, 2 blue, sorcery, rare. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck. put 2 of them in your hand and the rest onto the bottom, and you shuffle your library, or you put them on the bottom in a random order. So this is a fixed version of Dig Through Time. You're never going to cast this for 2 mana. But if you have Teferi Time Raveler, this does become an instant. So again, if you are on a budget and you need to have some card draw and you already own your Teferis, this is a pretty sweet option. Not going to spend too much time on it, but it definitely is a good budget option. Moving on to the next one, this is Embodiment of Agonies. So 1 generic, 2 black, creature demon rare 0/0 flying death touch. When it enters the battlefield, with +1/+1 counters for each different mana cost among non-land cards in your graveyard. So for example, if you have 2 colorless and black and colorless black, that's 2 different mana costs. So this thing could get pretty crazy if you're having discarding shenanigans. So if you have something that costs 1 single black and 1 single red and 1 single green, that's 3. However, I do want to point out it doesn't grow. So it is not like a Goyf where it grows as you get different costs in the graveyard. That would be insane, and I would say it'd be probably pretty close to a staple. But because of that, it's possible. I think this card is possible to make it to Modern. Again, this is kind of like the Modern Horizons 1.5, where it's like all these cards that like contextually could get there, but we'll see. It really is going to determine. It's really going to be determined. Excuse me, on whether or not this, what the format is going to look like. So moving on down the line, we have Tail's End. This is a colorless and a blue for an instant rare. Counter target activated ability or triggered ability or legendary spell. So very similar to Stifle. Stifle is a very cool card that I don't know if it's too good for Modern or what, but they didn't put it in Horizons. It's a cool effect. You can Tail's End cracks of fetches or Planeswalker abilities, and now you can just, with this, straight up counter a Planeswalker. So very cool. I do think, however, the counter bird that was in Hour of Devastation is probably better this, because at the very worst you get a 3/1 flyer if you don't need to counter anything, and you can cycle that. So I think at the end of the day, that card is a little bit better than Tail's End, but I did want to point it out. Moving on, we have Scheming Symmetry. So this one is actually very, very interesting to me because Vampiric Tutor is a very powerful card. Let me explain what this one is. Scheming Symmetry is black for a sorcery rare. Choose 2 target players. So in a normal game of Magic, you choose you and your opponent. Each of them searches their library for a card, then shuffles their library and puts that card on top of it. Okay. So with Teferi Time Raveler, it kind of breaks the symmetry because you can uptick Teferi and then in step cast this. You get to draw your spell first. Much better. Much better off the rip there. And then additionally, if you have Ashiok in play, you just mill the card that they get. And then you can do Jace shenanigans as well. So Jace, you can either Fate Seal them if you don't want them to get it, or if you want to have the card that you just put on top of your deck, you can Brainstorm. So some great synergies there. And then, but this card is best in Lantern Control because you go and find whatever card you need in your deck, and you have 2 or 3 mill rocks on the table. Just crack them. Now they don't get their card. Additionally, this is really good with Manamorphose and other cards that let you draw instantly. So I definitely think that you might be able to play this in Neo form, probably, if you're looking for the win con and you just need 1 more card, because you're going to draw it anyway that turn and then just kill them. So that's definitely an option. That's definitely an option as well. Moving on down the list, we got Goblin Ringleader. Holy smokes, we got Ringleader in Modern. So if you're unaware, this is a reprint of an old school card. It's Goblin Ringleader, 3 in a red. Creature Goblin uncommon, 2/2. Haste, when it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You can put all Goblin cards revealed that way into your hand and the rest on the bottom in any order. Goblin Ringleader was a staple when Goblins in Legacy was a good deck. Now, obviously, the Goblin deck in Modern right now is 8 whack, and that tries to kill you on like turn 3. This is much more, and the Legacy Goblins was much more of a mid-range, kind of even controlling deck almost, where it just had a lot of good card advantage, and then of course it had Siege Gang Commander and all those big baddies. But I mean, the Goblin deck is kind of getting there in Modern, so we'll see if it actually comes to fruition. But this is definitely a good boon to that Goblin deck, and something that, as a control player, you know, this helps them big time against us. Because looking at the top 4, drawing 2 or 3 cards, very, very big game. Some notable reprints: Rule of Law, Negate, of course. Moving on down the line to the next actual card that I want to talk about. Excuse me. We have Kaikar, Wind's Fury. So these are the legendaries from the set. This is Kaikar, Wind's Fury, 1 blue, red, white for a legendary creature, Bird Wizard, Mythic, 3/3 flying. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying, and then you can sacrifice a spirit to add red. Now, I don't know. I don't believe that this is going to go crazy, but I could definitely see this in a fun F&M style deck in Modern. You know, sacrificing a creature, a spirit, for adding red. That could get pretty interesting. And the art, I just want to point this out. The main reason I wanted to talk about is the art is basically this giant goose doing like a Kamehameha. The art is awesome. It's like Hadouken. So very sweet stuff, at least from the art side of things. And then the other legendary I want to talk about is Yarok the Desecrated, 2 black, green, blue for a 3/5 lifelinking, death-touching Panharmonicon on a body. So if a permanent enters the battlefield, causes a triggered ability you control, it triggers it again. So literally Panharmonicon. Saffron Olive's probably losing his mind over this. I think it was even probably his preview card. So have yourself a day there, Saffron Olive. But Yarok the Desecrated seems sweet. I definitely think you probably see this. Somebody's going to play this at F&M. Might be like a F&M deck. Pretty fun stuff. Grafdigger's Cage got a reprint. Hey, that's good. They were approaching about $10, so this will be good to drop that price. Next up, though, we do have a very good card for pretty much any tribal deck. This is Icon of Ancestry, 3 mana, 3 colorless, for an artifact rare, as long as when it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control get +1/+1. And then you can tap 3 and tap it. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Reveal a creature with the chosen type, and then the rest get shuffled back to the bottom of your deck. So yeah, humans, merfolk, spirits, all of those. This is a great card against us because it just draws an extra card every single turn. Seems insane. I love it. I think it's good. The art is beautiful. I'm a big art guy. Like, I love art. If you've listened to the podcast before, I've talked about the art on cards all the time. Big fan of the art. It's not just what the cards do. You gotta look good, you play good, you know? Moving on, we got Mystic Forge, 4 colorless for an artifact rare. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast the top card of your library as long as it's an artifact or a colorless spell, and you can tap it, pay life, to exile the top card of your library. Holy smokes. Experimental Frenzy for colorless cards. Are you kidding me, Wizards? This thing's nuts. And you can cast spells from your hand, too. This card is good. I mean, the Urza deck is everywhere right now. It just top-8'd the SCG and is 5-0ing on Moto Leagues and Modern Challenges on Moto. Mystic Forge, definitely got to look out for this in the Urza list, in the Were Prison decks. Even in Lantern, this card seems very, very sweet. Mystic Forge, though, definitely going to do some work. And the art makes me hungry for a pizza, wood-fired pizza looking good. Look at the art and tell me if you don't agree. Steel Overseer hits a reprint, so that is very cool. Steel Overseer is approaching like 15-16 bucks, so definitely if you want to play Affinity, pick those up now. Probably be the lowest they'll be in a long time. Or I guess after the set gets open a little bit, it'll be even lower. Next card I definitely want to talk about is Colossus Hammer. This thing is sweet. The art is awesome. It's got a giant holding a even more giant hammer. It's 1 colorless artifact equipment, uncommon. Equipped creature gets +10/+10 and loses flying because that hammer is very heavy. Ain't no bird gonna carry that and be able to fly. And the equip cost is 8. So there's a little combo that goes along with this thing. If you play your Core Duelist is a white 1/1 with double strike. Play your Core Duelist on turn 1. Play Sigarda's Aid on turn 2 first. Then play your next land. And then play Colossus Hammer. It auto-attaches to the Core Duelist because of Sigarda's Aid. And then you get to dome your opponent for 22. And cross your fingers they don't have any interaction. But that is the dream. There's actually a local player, Jeff, shout out to Jeff Blyden, who was playing this the other night against Blue-White. It was like a mono-white, played Pure Steel Paladin, and just a very like fair deck, but tried to do very unfair things. Played against Blue-White. I beat him 2 or 3 times. He got a game off me, and then he said switch decks, so I switched to Eldrazi-tron, and then I resolved a turn to Chalice on 1, and he just like, okay. And I'm like, Jeff, these are the decks you're going to be playing. These are tier 1 decks. So maybe it's not tier 1 worthy, but maybe it is. We will see. We have to, we'll see how things shake out. And then, of course, the temples are back, so not that they were getting way too crazy, but they will drop the price, so you can pick those up if you need them. So moving on to, so that is the M20 Core Set 2020 spoilers, and that's all the cards I think might see some play. But moving on to the tournaments, we had some very, I would say, interesting decks. We had at the SCG, I'll talk about the SCG that moved to the GP because the GP, finally the results are in. And, well, we'll talk about that here in a minute. But the winning team of Jeremy Bertioni, Dom Harvey, and Jonathan Hobbs won the tournament with Mardu, Death Shadow, Bridgevine, and Humans. Bridgevine was everywhere at this tournament. There were some players. It was a team tournament, by the way. There were some teams with literal 3 Hogak decks. That's disgusting. Some teams with 2, but let's read off some of the top 8 deck lists. So that's the first place team. Second place team was Is It Phoenix, Grixis Urza, ding ding, brand new deck, hot out the gate, except I was talking about it 2 weeks ago. But anyways, Is It Phoenix? So double Is It Phoenix, Grixis Urza deck. And then the third place team is It Phoenix, Humans. And then we have Bant Infect, Grixis Urza Burn. And then in 5th place, Bridgevine, Colorless Eldrazi, Bridgevine. So they're ding ding, 2 Bridgevine players on the same team. Humans, Bridgevine, Infect in 6th. Is It Phoenix, Triple Is It Phoenix. And top, that was 7th. And then in 8th, we had Humans, Mono Red Phoenix, and Devoted Devastation. Devoted Devastation is the new Devoted Druid combo deck that's not playing Coco anymore, and they're playing Hour of Devastation, Eldamri's Call to find the combo. So that deck is definitely kind of a new one. Also want to talk about Mardu Shadow. This deck is, well, it's Mardu Shadow. Death Shadows, Dreadhorde Arcanists, Giver of Runes, Ranger Captain of Eos, along with Surgicals and Path to Exiles for Hogak. And I mean, I'm pretty sure that's why the switch was made. And then, of course, Dreadhorde Arcanist for the red, cutting the blue entirely. Now, that was the open. There was a Modern Classic as well, which I do want to kind of talk about a bit. First place went to John Whitestone, playing Burn. Second place was Esper Control, and I'll get back to that. I do want to talk about that deck because Control deck, definitely need to talk about that. Third was Is It Phoenix? Then we got Jund in 4th and 5th. Humans, 7th was Bridgevine, and 8th was Burn. Good day for Burn at the old Classic there. But let's take a look at this Esper deck by, Sean Moglard. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, but let's take a look. We have 4 Snaps, 2 Clicks, 2 Jace, 4 Narset, 1 Teferi Time Raveler. So, not a red flag, but thing to note here, there's no Hero of Dominaria. Then we have some lands, 3 Nile Spellbombs, a lot of Nile Spellbombs, 2 Cryptics, 1 Factor Fiction, 2 Fatal Push, 2 Force of Negation, 2 Kaya's Guile, 3 Opt, 4 Path to Exile, 2 Supreme Verdict, and 2 Thoughtseize. That's the main deck. We had 4 Leyline of the Voids, 1 Detention Sphere, 1 Engineered Explosive, 2 Celestial Purge, 1 Ceremonious Rejection, 2 Dovin's Veto, 1 Kaya's Guile, 1 Spell Pierce, 1 Teferi Time Raveler, and 1 Wrath of God. So all the ley lines in the sideboard and 3 spell bombs in the main. No Teferi Hero of Dominaria, of course, fighting the good fight that is Hogak. And Kaya's Guile, obviously good against Hogak too, if you can get it off before they start to combo. Get their pieces set up and combo off against you on turn 3. Deck's still nuts. Wizards, what are we doing here? So let's talk about the GP. That was SCG. That was the Open, the Team Modern Open and the Modern Classic. But at the GP rather, Dallas Fort Worth, we had the top 8 comprised of 2 Hogak, 2 Blue-Eye Controls, 1 Human, 1 Grixis Urza, 1 Blue Taking Turns, and 1 Eldrazi Tron. So the first place deck was Blue Eye Control, Austin Bursavich. Sorry if I butchered the name again, I do apologize. But he played a deck that I pointed out last episode, which was Doom Switch's Blue Eye Control. He played the exact same 75. So, and actually in his victory interview, he said just play Doom Switch's list. It's great. So I'm going to go through the list and talk about some of the cards. So we have 2 Jace the Mind Sculptors, 3 Narset Parter Veils, 1 Teferi Hero of Dominaria, 1 Teferi Time Raveler, 4 Snapcaster Mage, 2 Vendilion Clicks, 1 Oust, 2 Verdicts, 2 Cryptics, 1 Dovin's Veto, 1 Factor Fiction, 1 Logic Knot, 4 Opt, 4 Paths, 1 Spell Snare, 2 Surgicals, 1 Detention Sphere. And then he is playing the 25th land as a Blast Zone, and then he has 2 Force of Negations. And then in the board, 4 Rest in Pieces. So that was really the thing that he kind of strayed from Doom Switches, but it definitely paid off that he played Hogak in the final match of the night, and he won thanks to Monastery Mentor and Timely Reinforcements. So congrats to Austin on winning the GP. That was pretty sweet to see. I got to watch it afterwards because we were recording while the finals were going on. So yeah, Blue Eye Control taking down a tournament in this Hogak meta. What do you know about that? So moving on to the one thing I like to do every week, which is break down the modern metagame over there on MTG Goldfish. Shout out to them for always having the percentages up there. So I'm going to do the top 8 deck list, or not deck list, but top 8 most represented. We got Hogak Vine at 6.74% of the meta. We got Humans at 4.81. We got Azorius Control at 4.57. We've got Is It Phoenix at 4.45. Eldrazi Tron at 3.13. Mono Red Phoenix at 3.01. Mono Green Tron at 2.17. And Burn at 2.05. So one thing I do want to point out in this one is Hogak last week was, I believe, first, but quite less of the meta share. Now all the decks behind it are slimming their meta share, and Hogak's going up. That's a red flag to me, because Hogak almost 7% of the metagame. That doesn't sound like a lot, but in Modern, that's a lot. That's so much. So the fact that Hogak is really picking up meta, and it did do very well at I think the conversion rate was through the roof at the GP for day 1 to day 2, and same thing with the Open. So I definitely think something needs to be done. And someone tweeted out that 42 of the 75 decks that made day 2 at the Open all had Faithless Looting in it. So maybe Faithless Looting will be the card that maybe gets the ban hammer. I still think Bridge, just because Hogak is the big scary bad boy right now, and I don't think they want to ban something that they just printed. So yeah, that's the metagame breakdown for this week. And that is about all I've got this week for the Control Freak podcast. Again, I am Alex Blackard, or at LessAlex on Twitter. Feel free to message me or tweet at me, talk some blue-white. I'll learn some things from you. You might learn something from me. And again, if you enjoy the podcast, if you enjoy this content, make sure to like it. Make sure to subscribe and follow. And if you really do want to help support me, go on over to Apple Podcasts, give me a 5-star review and a couple kind words on the review, because it really goes away with the analytics. It bumps me up in the sorting of that. So if you go over there and just, give me a 5-star review and a couple kind words, that means the world to me. And yeah, again, shout out to Zach Johnson for recording this thing twice now with me, and then it didn't save. So I appreciate you, Zach, if and when you listen to this. But yeah, this is the Control Freak podcast. I'll be back next week with another episode. And yeah, until then, thanks everyone for watching. You can catch the episodes on Podbean, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and I'm really trying to get it on Spotify. There's an issue with the formatting that I use for the audio, so I'm trying to get it on Spotify. But until next time, everyone, have a great night, have a great day, and be kind to one another, Magic players. Have a good night.